The number one thing that I think most of us do not recognize is your mental health means health, right? That is why that word is in there. The best piece of life hack, if you will, advice I can give is don't put it on a shelf. You have to feel it and you have to support it in order to heal it.
What would you say is the common denominator of a person that's truly aligned or is aware, deeply aware of their nervous system?
Content and happiness, I would say.
Hi, I'm Moshe Popack, and welcome to Common Denominator. Today, we speak with Dr. Brooke Weinstein. Brooke is a doctor of occupational therapy and a world-renowned expert on sensory and emotional regulation. Her goal is to help anyone who is exhausted, depleted, and suffers from chronic anxiety. Think of her as a personal trainer for your brain. She has a top 10 podcast in the US. She's been featured on NBC, Forbes, and more. And we're thrilled to have her here on the show. Hi, Dr. Brooke, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's an honor and a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, one concept that I've been studying for a long, long time is the idea of regulation of the nervous system. Why do you find that as a base? Why is that so important to the human being?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And just to kind of dive right in, I have been in healthcare, I would say, for well over a decade. I have done the hospital setting, I've done home health, I've done school system. I owned and ran my own clinic for 6 years, and the treatment that I was providing was not working. And I recognized that the reason it wasn't working was because no one understood the nervous system the way that I understood it. And I was only seeing, at the time I was working with children, and I started in pediatrics, and an hour a week is not enough time to help the child, let alone there's no ability to help teach the family about the nervous system. And your nervous system is like the engine of your car, right? And your nervous system is always speaking to you, like your dashboard is in your car. You need to change the oil. You need to check the engine. You need to fill your tank with gas. And 90% of the world has no idea how their engine runs. They have no idea what makes them who they are, what patterns they have, what makes them tick, and why they're behaving the way they're behaving. And if you understand the nervous system, but then also understand your individual nervous system, I truly believe that that is the core of mental health, not as much psychological, but neurological. And for people to understand that, they will be able to then understand who they are, respect, value, and honor who they are, and be able to live out their life and support their brain rather than like a tug of war pushing against their brain, if you will, or trying to fix something that's probably not broken.
And what would you say is a good starting point? Someone that knows nothing about their nervous system, what would you say is a good place to begin?
Yeah. So the best place to begin is for me to just kind of explain to you how the nervous system functions. I like to explain that your nervous system is like a smoke detector, right? It's a really easy, just like the car metaphor, smoke detector, right? The purpose of a smoke detector is to sniff out smoke, to sniff out threat, right? When there is a threat within your home, let's say it's fire, all the things, your smoke detector is going to start making a really annoying noise to the point where you can't ignore it. And especially if the battery is the problem, it's going to beep and chirp every few minutes at night and wake you up, right? It's not going to let up. It's the same thing with your nervous system. Your nervous system is going to sound the alarms. It's going to tell your inner workings of your body, hey, something is going on. We need to look at this, right? If we don't look at this, which 9 times out of 10, humans don't even recognize that's what they should be listening into is their inner self, right? And that's that voice and that's that nervous system telling you what's going on the dashboard. Your smoke detector will continue getting, because of today's world and how fast everything moves and the immediacy culture and life and chaos, and whether you have family or career, you end up pushing higher and higher and higher and higher and higher up on that curve of fight or flight. And so when you're higher up on that curve of fight or flight, your nervous system, your smoke detector will become that much more sensitive. And so oftentimes our alarm is sounding and telling us to stop, drop, and roll when there is actually no real true threat. And so we have to be able to listen into the nervous system and then decipher, is this a true threat or not? And recalibrate that nervous system so that we can remain more regulated and in a peaceful state.
I know also one of the tools is like, which I use all the time, is kind of like a moment of silence. Why is that? Is that like the beginning? One of the tools that I use is like pen to paper. When I'm lying in bed, so you're calm, and then it's kind of like reflection of truth of who you are. That seems to really do a lot for me.
Yeah, I think that I will tell you that I get asked this question probably without fail, no matter what circumstance I'm in, whether it's on a podcast or an interview for a journal magazine, or like everyone wants to know, like, what's the thing, or like, how do I start? What are the tools? It sounds like for you, journaling is fantastic, and it is pen to paper. It is physical pushing and feedback that you're getting from that pen. Actually, pencil or crayon is the best because you're getting a lot of feedback, but that will regulate you. Lying down will regulate you. But I tell my clients all the time, journaling, meditating, box breathing, especially journaling and meditating, I don't have time for that. Like, I am a widow. I have 2 kiddos. I am running a business with a staff of over 20. Like, I don't necessarily have time to fit in journaling into my life, nor does that feel satiating for me in terms of how to regulate my nervous system. There is different terms, such as, are you a seeker, which means you are going from task to task to task. You are the high performance CEO, or you're running, at all cylinders. You're like the gas pedal, right? A lot of my seekers, a lot of my gas pedals get dysregulated very easily because their brain wants to go so fast, but their body can't keep up. I have some people called avoiders who really are more like introverts, individuals who really don't, literally their brain and body doesn't crave as much stimuli as everyone else, but then they compare themselves to other humans of like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? And so they try to push so hard to go be the social butterfly, or go get that job, or go do that thing. And they get dysregulated because they're going above and beyond what their nervous system is really craving. Some people have both. Some people have avoidance tendencies and seeking tendencies. And we've got a whole sensory slew of a human, right? We also have something called low registration, where I see individuals who are bumping into walls and have bruises that they don't know how they've gotten. They're getting their clothes, caught on the cabinet drawer, or the mess in the house doesn't bother them, right? Those individuals need to be able to slow down their brain so that they can register the world and environment around them. I also have individuals who have just sensory sensitivity in general, right? Vision, touch, taste, all the different senses, right? All the different stimuli. It could be, I don't want to be touched with a 10-foot pole, or I don't want to hold your hand, or I don't want the bright lights, or I crave spicy food. all these things and how you function all relate back to your nervous system. So if I told someone, yep, if you come work with me, or if you want to know how to regulate your nervous system, it's journaling, box breathing, and meditating. That may not work for everyone. The seeker may need heavy lifting with weights to like release the energy, expend the energy to be able to slow their brain down, or a walk. It just depends on individual brains, how they function, understanding literally how they tick, what is their makeup, so that they can then co-create with me or with themselves, right? What works for them.
And you think that through all adults and children should visit an occupational therapist? Do you think that's a good? Because I've had for some of my kids occupational therapists.
Sure.
Some of them are good, and some of them are not great. So you also to find the best occupational therapist as well.
Yeah, I would say a brain is a brain is a brain. So anyone can do this work. I built this specialty out of, honestly, this is no ego, but I built this out of something that had never existed before. We go through all of this education. We are really well versed in the nervous system. We see so many kiddos with sensory issues, or so many adults with sensory needs or sensory things, but there was never really a niche of, I am going to focus on helping individuals learn how to understand the nervous system and learn how to regulate their nervous system. So I have built a system, and I've built a method that I walk them through. I wouldn't say that every occupational therapist specializes this, or that every occupational therapist knows how to support this particular avenue of work and of this journey and supporting oneself. However, I absolutely had the background, experience, and knowledge from my education that kind of all came together to be able to create what I've created now today.
And I know you talk a lot about not being hard on yourself. So I know a lot of people that are kind of the seekers, right? So you're saying, your brain is going a million miles an hour, right? And your body's not keeping up. I think that seems to be like, you just get hard on yourself.
Yes.
What's a typical way to not be so hard on yourself?
That's a really great question. So typically what I see is this pattern of like, it's almost like a yo-yo diet of like peaks and valleys, right? Like imagine like a huge mountain and then like, a river down below or whatever it is, right? We go on this curve of like highs and lows of like, okay, I can make it. I can do it. This feels great. And then boom, oh crap, no, I can't. And snapping at, our loved ones or whatever it is. And then it's, oh, wait, I got this. And then we go back down. And it's like this big yo-yo diet of like, I can, oh crap, I can't. I can, okay, I can't. And that is not a fun way to live. That's not an enjoyable way to live. And every time we're down in that valley, what ends up happening is we rip ourselves to shreds and we say, why can't I keep it together? I should be able to keep it together. I must be able to keep it together. Like everyone else can do it. Why can't I just keep it together for one day? And what ends up happening is we're building these negative feedback loops within our brain that says we're not enough. We're broken. It's me. I'm the problem. I'm the crazy one. I need to be fixed. And what ends up happening is go to sleep, rip ourselves to shred, wake back up. And the next day we jump right back up that curve on the top of the mountain, but we go a little bit higher than we were yesterday because we want to prove to ourselves that we actually can do it. All the while, we are just continuing to jump higher and higher and higher up into that fight or flight state because we're trying so hard to prove something, to prove to ourselves that we can achieve or we can do. And so the opposite of that is we have to do the process of de-shaming our brain. So when we snap or when we don't feel that we've achieved XYZ, or when we feel tired, or when we feel happy, or when we feel exhausted, We just need to accept it. We just need to say, okay, that is where I'm at for today, right? Instead of the shaming aspect, we just need to accept it and say, get curious and say, I wonder what tomorrow will be like, right? It's all about doing the process of de-shaming the brain so that we can say, it is okay if I'm tired. It is okay if I snapped. It is okay if I didn't show up as my best. It is okay if I'm not perfect. It is okay if I didn't finish the XYZ.
I saw on Instagram, this is a quote, "This is a gentle reminder that on the days you only have 35% and you give 35%, you actually give 100%. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That is, a friend of mine told me about like that idea of surrender and acceptance, right? Like you're saying, I just felt like when you were explaining that to accept, because, right, what are the things that don't move people? Guilt, fear, shame, trauma. Those are things that play in your mind that cause people not to move forward. So it's like, it's like the more we can talk about it and explain that everybody has a version of that, and it's okay, because tomorrow will be another day. So I really love that idea.
Yeah, you have to be able to accept where you're at, because if that 35% is accepted and worthy of just being where you're at, I guarantee you, if you give in to that 35%, you may have 40 or 50 tomorrow, because you've allowed yourself to be in the space where you need to be. But if you push, if you're like 35% is not enough and you push to 80, guarantee you may have 15 or 20 tomorrow, because you were already so depleted that you didn't honor that. You didn't listen into that dashboard. You didn't listen into what your engine was telling you.
How, again, going to like the idea of trauma, all of us, we've experienced some form of trauma. What are good practical tips to release trauma that we have inside of us in kind of like a permanent way, that it doesn't actually come back? Is there kind of like a life hack to be able to do that?
Absolutely. I myself have been through trauma, and like I said earlier, I'm widowed, and my husband actually took his own life in 2021. And that was a very complex trauma for me of supporting my children, taking care of myself, and continuing on with my career and my life, and trying to take care of myself while weathering the storm. And the best piece of life hack, if you will, advice I can give is, don't put it on a shelf. Don't swallow it and say, I've got to go do this meeting. I'll feel that later. Or I only can feel this and I can only cry in the car. Or, okay, it's been a year, like I should feel better. You have to, I'm sure everyone has heard this before, but you have to feel it and you have to support it in order to heal it. And so if you're feeling anger through a trauma, it's not fun feeling anger, but you've got to allow it. You've got to regulate through it. You've got to support yourself through it, and you have to feel it, whether it's sadness or even sometimes going through trauma and you feel joy. That's a hard one to feel too, of like guilt again, right? Or shame of like, I shouldn't be feeling joy. You have to be willing to feel the emotion. You have to be willing to go through it. Otherwise, that jar that you have just capped on a shelf will be waiting for you whenever you finally decide to peek in, like look in the jar. It'll still be waiting for you. But if you slowly, let's say it's a big bag of worries, right? And you slowly unzip the bag and you talk about it one at a time, and you honor those emotions and you honor the feelings, or you honor the trigger, or you listen in and you accept it and you share and you don't hide it. You're dealing with it. You're accepting it. You're moving through it rather than over it.
My daughter asked me the other day, she's like, Dad, do you ever cry? And, you talk about crying. It's actually a very practical, in the physical world, it's a very practical way to release.
Yes.
right? But society says for men, especially for men, right, you shouldn't cry. But no, all the time. It could be tears of joy and tears of, right? But that feeling afterwards, you just feel like it's just it should be more normalized.
Tears and crying is hands down a form of regulation that individuals do not recognize is so healthy, and I mean, that's a life hack, honestly. Like, crying is a life hack because, just like you said, I almost explained it as this storm where there's a pot of gold at the end. If you've ever seen, there's a difference between, let's say, tantrums and meltdowns. A tantrum is, I know what I want and I'm gonna get it. A meltdown is, I have no idea what I want. I don't know why I'm upset. Like, nothing is making sense. I want the sandwich cut into quarters and I want it cut into thirds and I want, right? Like, we have no idea what we want. Adults have tantrums and meltdowns too. Never did anyone hand you a certificate and say, congratulations, you're now an adult. No one ever did that. And if you can observe, if you have the pleasure of being able to observe a meltdown of a child where they are just all over the place, there's nothing you say, nothing you could do could help them. If you watch for the end of that meltdown, it is like a pot of gold at the end. They're regulated, they're peaceful, they are communicative, they are so loving and nurturing, and it demonstrates to you the release of, if my nervous system, if I'm not going to allow my nervous system to regulate and help support my nervous system to regulate, a lot of times it ends up in that meltdown of, my nervous system is going to do it for me. My brain is going to do it for me, and I've moved through it, and this is the result. It's just like peace and beauty. And I always tell individuals, no apologies. Like the first thing out of people's mouth when they cry is, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, why are you apologizing? Like, there's no apologies needed. Like bring it on, like, let it out.
Yeah. I know also it's a very big passion of yours to help parents. I guess not necessarily on the extreme side, but if a child tells you, I hate you, or something like that, and I'm a big fan of that unconditional love. So what's a practical tip for that?
So I have I'm in the middle ground. I believe that we are in this state of, especially the parents who are parenting currently right now, I think we went from authoritative and authoritarian parenting to gentle and conscious parenting. And we have swung such the opposite way that I see that we are all, and even if you don't have kids, like, I see this even in the workplace, like, we're so afraid to say the thing, or we're so afraid to insult, or we're so afraid to hurt, or we're so afraid to step in, or boundaries, or all the different things. Children need boundaries. Employees need boundaries. If you get to a place where, if your child says, I hate you at 2, they have no idea what they're saying. But if your child says it, I say around 5, 6, like, if they're saying it at 6 years old and that affects you, you absolutely have a right to sit down and share how that made you feel and say, I feel really sad. I don't, like, what is your need, right? I need you to not say that to me because I feel sad when you say that, right? It is okay to also have feelings and boundaries as a human, as a parent. Again, even in your workspace, if you don't have children, it's really important to be able to, and what I explained in there is invoking emotion, sharing feelings, but also having conscious boundaries, right? So it can be logic brain and emotion brain at the same time. And you just have to decide as a parent, specifically, like, what are you willing to, let's say, tolerate, or where's your boundary, or what feels good and right for you? You get to decide. Society doesn't get to decide. Your parents don't get to decide. This is now your time to be a parent and forge ahead and decide how you want your life with your children to look and what is and is not acceptable or okay.
I know also that you have an online course, the Signature Thrive program. For someone that wants to take the program, what's the main takeaway? What would you like the people that sign up to learn from the program?
It's really a lot of everything that I explained in the beginning of our conversation. It's understanding the nervous system. It's taking the sensory profile, which is a standardized assessment that only occupational therapists can give. And it's learning how you tick. It's learning your inner workings of, your engine. It's learning how you run. And then it's also learning how to recalibrate that nervous system in a way that feels best and right for you, and supporting the patterns of your brain. I don't want any individual to feel like, okay, she's just given me this information and now I need to go apply it. No one has time for that. I want to apply it while you're working with us. And so we make sure that you are living from this place of it's so natural. We pattern and practice and do all the things within the inner workings of working with us, whether it is our group program or one-on-one or any of our on-demand courses. I want it to be as natural as possible because, again, we don't have time for much extra, right? And so we have to make sure that by the time we're done, it is coming from a place of the most naturalistic state of being where it just shows up for you. And that's through practice.
And congratulations on a top 10 podcast, right? Thrive Like a Parent.
Thank you.
What would you say that's kind of like out of the box that you've learned as a parent kind of through the podcast, through your life's journey, that you'd like to tell parents? That
is a phenomenal question. The number one advice I would give to individuals, and it doesn't even have to be a parent. It can be someone who is in a relationship. It can be someone who is in a really high performing position in their career. I work with a lot of high performance CEOs or just high performers in general because they're goers. If you are not taking care of yourself, everything else around you is not going to function well. And that may sound, I use the word be selfish a lot. I use that really harsh word because you're not going to just flip a switch and just be like, F you and be able to be so incredibly selfish. What's going to end up happening is you're going to give yourself permission to move the needle slightly, just slightly, to take yourself instead of either at the bottom of the totem pole or not even on the totem pole at all, but put yourself somewhere in that mix. Put yourself somewhere in it to where you are functioning at your highest state, because that is where you're going to parent from the best. When you are well taken care of and supported and mentally well, that is where you're going to function best for your, let's say, employees or as a team. If you are part of a team in a career setting, you have to focus on you first, as well as within a relationship. You have to focus on you to be able to come back to center with everyone else within your life.
I know for myself, when I learned how to say no a lot of the time, that definitely helped me. That definitely helped me a lot. Right? It was because you can't. There's only a certain amount of time in the day, and it's just not possible. Mm-hmm. But Dr. Brooke, tell me, what is something today, looking back at your journey, and again, on behalf of myself and team, deep condolences. And I know for your husband. And what is something that you are grateful for today?
As crazy as it sounds, I'm really grateful for my journey. I'm really grateful for what has happened in my life. As hard as it was, do I wish that Jonathan was still here? Absolutely. But I am grateful for the journey that I've been on, because I would not be the human that I am today if I had not experienced everything that I've experienced in my life. I'm really grateful to have had the grief and the lessons. I'm really grateful to have learned how to support myself, practice what I preach, and really and do the work. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. We all want a quick fix, but I'm really proud of the way in which I have gone through my journey and supported myself. And that is exactly the same thing that I teach every single person who comes into my community, whether it's on my podcast or my YouTube channel or working with it, like no matter what it is, I want everyone to feel that as well, and to be proud and grateful for their own journey and their own path, even if it takes time.
And what would you say is the common denominator of a person that's truly aligned or is aware, deeply aware of their nervous system? What do they actually look like to the outside?
Content and happiness, I would say. Balance is like the most bogus word that doesn't really ever exist. We're always going to have things that come up and happen in our life. And we have to be able to accept that. But I believe that the difference between someone who has done this work versus not is, burnt out, overwhelmed, exhausted, depleted, tired, like living for others. I mean, I could go on and on and on, versus peace, joy, calm, presence, happy, joyful, and healthy, right? That is the number one thing that I think most of us do not recognize is your mental health means health, right? That is why that word is in there. And as far as we know, right, we only get one shot. And so not being healthy while enjoying your life, what are you doing? Like, why are you working so hard or pounding the pavement, or like, what is the point, right?
Yeah. That's that realization. When you realize that, that's a big shift in life.
Yeah.
When you realize the things that you've been running for, like the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And then you have to make choices.
Yeah. And I'm 39. I would say my journey started in my early 30s. And I think that I'm grateful that it happened when I was in my 30s, because I work with individuals who are older than me, or I have friends who are older than me and just moving through something big or these realizations. And I'm so grateful that I get to have this for the rest of my life and live out, my truth and my journey and the growth that I have made.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Brooke. Really, just energetically and just in the conversation that we have, you really should be really proud of yourself, and everybody really should. Like journeying, that's actually life. That's living life. So really, thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for the time. How can people find you, sign up for your course, listen to your podcasts?
Yeah, I would say my hub is Instagram, but I'm everywhere. I'm on TikTok, like I said, YouTube, LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on all the channels, but just look me up with my name, Brooke Weinstein. You'll see my big curly hair, and that's me.
Well, thank you so much. Really, really thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Brooke.
If you haven't already, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribing ensures you never miss an episode and helps us continue to bring you meaningful conversations that make a difference.
Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.